All right, welcome back to the show, everyone. I am Lindsay Hack, and I am always so grateful for you to be here. I have another fabulous guest who just also happens to be a fabulous Lindsay as well. You got double Lindsay today, and we are going to talk a lot about her zone of genius. But actually, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself, Lindsay. So tell us who you are and why do we care?
Gosh, hi Lindsay. Well, I'm another Lindsay, spelt slightly differently, the posh way. This is the posh way of spelling Lindsay, according to my mum. Yeah, there's that many variations of it. And I am in Toronto. I'm a Brit living in Toronto, and I'm a brand strategist and designer. And yeah, I'm looking forward to our chat today, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's so funny. So Lindsay and I have been connected in a networking group for a couple of months now. And the more we even have conversations with each other, we're just like, oh my gosh, like even though Canadian versus British, there's so many similarities to our story in general, which has just been so fun to kind of explore. But so you say you're a brand specialist. So let's talk about this for a second, because if anybody has connected themselves to Lindsay, which if you haven't, I highly recommend, and I will put her information in the show notes. You got a bit of a way of talking to people, and I love it. And I will even say I fucking love it, because that's kind of what I say. I send her messages regularly to be like, "You just made me giggle." Part of it's kind of bringing it back to my husband's British, so his roots, his conversation, words he uses that just make me giggle. But tell me more when you say, I mean, that I feel like that's such a blanket statement. And you've talked about this a lot in even your content. What does it mean to you to be a brand strategist, a brand specialist, like you say? What does that actually mean? And let's not sugarcoat it. Let's go deep into this and what it actually means.
Well, that is a brilliant question, Lindsay, and one I am always willing to answer because you are absolutely right. It is a really blanket statement, and well, I don't think I know that in certainly in the industry that we're in this sort of coaching world, it gets batted around a lot and it means lots of different things to different people. So I am here to give you today what it actually means. Yeah, no fluff, just what it means based on 25 years of brand and marketing experience. So I am not new to this. I'm sort of new to the coaching world, but I have previously, prior to COVID, I was in the global tourism industry for 25 years. And actually, whilst it's a very different industry, from a brand perspective and how I apply my experience to my coach clients, there's a lot of similarities because, I mean, first of all, the tourism industry is a service-based industry. It's not, I've never worked in product. I've always worked in the service sector. So, we can really learn a lot from as coaches and as consultants and as female entrepreneurs and small business owners. We can really learn a lot from those big service sector businesses and organizations. And brand for me, brand strategy is so there's brand, there's branding, and then now all of a sudden we have this new personal branding, which of course is all about us being the brand, us being the product as individuals. So branding, which gets batted around a lot, is really essentially all to do with your business, your aesthetics, really, your logo, your color palette, the imagery that you're putting out there, anything that's visual, that is branding. And branding is just one part of brand strategy. Yeah. So brand overall is essentially the foundations of your business. So before you even go out and think about marketing your business and yourself, you really have to have those critical brand foundations in place. So you have to really know who you are. You have to really know who your ideal client is. You really have to understand your zone of genius. And I talk a lot about zone of genius because, again, when you are a business that relies on yourself and you and your experience and all those things that make up the zone of genius, that is critical. That is the first piece of the puzzle. And when I talk about zone of genius, I don't just mean like a flyaway comment of, oh, my zone of genius is I'm a brand strategist. I mean, really understanding the essence of who you are. So, what is your God-given talent? What were you born to do? When you were growing up at school, what were you really, really good at? When you went to college or when you went to school, when you went to university, what skills did you come away with? What experiences have you had in life? What are your passions? What do you feel really, really strongly about? What do you want to advocate for? And also, what are your quirks? You mentioned earlier, I am a Brit. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I like a cup of tea, but I'm not everybody's cup of tea. A good cup of Yorkshire tea, yeah. But I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I'm okay with that, and I've become okay with that. And that again is part of my genius zone. It's the intersection between all these things. It's where that magic sits, and that is the essence of your brand. As an individual, as a coach, as somebody that is using themselves to build a business, that is the essence of your brand, really. And then the strategy, a brand strategist then takes that and basically applies it to different ways in which you can build a business. So I'm talking a lot at the moment about IP within business, intellectual property. I'm talking about how to really build a business and a brand. The best thing you can be doing moving forward is to have some kind of signature system, something that you can trademark that becomes your IP, that you can become associated with and famous for, that's going to generate you press coverage, that's going to get you on the podcast, that's going to make people sit up and think, oh my God, that's her, and that's her method. And that method is based on her zone of genius. So it's proven. And the more the bigger this industry gets and the more saturated it gets and the more AI starts to play a crucial part, unfortunately, what that means is there are a lot of people that are hiding behind AI, certainly ChatGPT, certainly content. And in order to build a sustainable business, we have to have more than that now. We have to have more than the great copy, the high converting content, the great imagery, our life experiences. We have to have something that brings all that together. And that to me is really the essence of branding and brand. And then what I do from once I've developed that strategy and once we've worked out, okay, what can you own? What is your signature system? What is your signature method that sits underneath you and your business? It's really good thing that like
All right, we had a little technical difficulty there, but now we're
Lindsay
back.
fell asleep. I was rambling. I was going on for too long. She's like, that's what happens. It's the ADHD in me, you see. This is what happens. I get onto a story and I'm like, woo, where am I going? I'm not sure. But anyway, I think what we were talking about was brand strategy and the importance of having some kind of intellectual property within your business and that being the core of your brand, and that really rooted in your zone of genius. And I was also talking about my experience in the tourism industry for 25 years, and one of the things that I was really good at, and I did a lot of in my career, and when I say I worked in the tourism industry, my job particularly was working on behalf of big international tourism boards. So I was living in the UK, and I was contracted by them to essentially do all of their brand marketing, product development, PR, everything so I worked for some really, really big tourism boards. I worked for Isle of New York. I worked for Ontario Tourism, which is ironically where I'm living now. I worked for Hawaii Tourism. I worked for Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. So I worked for some big tourism boards, and a big part of my job on their behalf was really finding products that were really gonna light up the Brits to get them to come to that destination. So if you were to, so an example would be when I was working for Ontario Tourism, Destination Canada, they had this and they still have this great initiative called the Canadian Signature Experiences Program. And that is their brand strategy. What they're doing there is they're coming up with revenue generating products. So not just come to Canada and visit Niagara Falls and go stand next to it, because anybody can do that for free. But come to Canada and go on a canoe trip in X destination where you can do X, Y, and Z, and you can't do that anywhere else in the world. So that becomes almost like this whole program becomes their offers, really, their offer suite. So it's very similar for us as coaches and as entrepreneurs, as women running service-based businesses. We have to find what that signature experience is, what that revenue generator is, so that we can own it, put our stamp on it, and nobody else can copy it. And that for me is the absolute crux of great brand strategy. And everything else, your marketing strategy, your PR strategy, your sales strategy, links back to that. Everything is then consistent. We're not flip-flopping around. We have one core piece that is almost like the through line. Everything else, that's the through line to everything within your business. And that is how you scale and grow.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've run my own business for about 17 years now, and I've had multiple coaches and multiple different people trying to help me. And I don't feel like that's talked a lot about. And, it's like, well, what do you want to offer? Or what do you want to, do? And then it's like, well, what does your social media content look like? And it's this whole set of kind of things that you follow. And most business coaches follow the same set. And I almost feel like if this is such a big missing piece to that, it's finding ways, because I mean, you must come across some resistance for this. You must come across people who are like, well, you're asking me all these questions and I don't really know what that has to do with my business, or what that has to do with me making money. And so how do you find you deal with that when you might come with somebody who's like, very interested in what you say, you are their cup of tea, you like them, but they're like a little bit resistant to what you're saying because it's so different than some of the other business coaches, the big gurus out there are saying, first do this, then maybe talk about this.
I think for me, the most resistance comes from the word brand and branding. It's almost it's a nice to have. It's not a revenue generator. It's all about making things look pretty. It's all about this. It's all about that. When I'm just like, you've got it so wrong. Put branding to one side. Brand strategy. You as the brand. You are the brand. Without really intentionally working on that, what have you got? How can you even begin to position yourself as an authority? How can you even begin to cut through the noise if you're not intentionally investing in and focusing on your brand? And actually, the women that I've worked with in the last couple of years, that IP piece, that intellectual property piece, has been the thing that's lit them up the most. It is the like that, oh shit, this is what I'm missing. Oh my God, that is the piece that they don't even think of. I had a client that I've just finished working with over the last 6 months, and it should have been a 3-month project. It ended up being 6 months because of the mindset shift for her that she had throughout this. And this is a byproduct of what I do. I'm not a mindset coach, but when you start to get absolute clarity and you put something like that in place that's tangible, that you start to realize, oh my God, that isn't just me talking. That's doing the talking before I even open my mouth. That has a massive impact on your mindset. You shift from limiting beliefs and, oh my God, I want to attract this client, and you realize actually you can attract a much higher up the food chain for the want of a phrase, than what you think you can, because all of a sudden you realize this is all based on my zone of genius. Nobody else can do this. This is me, and I have something tangible, and it looks professional, and it fits into my entire branding and all of that. I can go and talk about it until the cows come home on a podcast, or without having to just go in and try and articulate to somebody what it is that they do. And so it's a game changer. It really is. And everybody can whack a TM or a C or an R sign on something. I think so many people go out and they're like, I'm going to go find an alliteration of something and I'm going to stick a TM on it, and that's my IP. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about something that's structured, that is built with your zone of genius at the heart of it, and then is built out from there and becomes the crux of your business.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And actually, let's talk about that for a second, because you actually recently, and I love this because of course I was such a part of this one as well, had a bit of a mindset shift when it came to AI and AI imaging with your own business. So you talk a little bit about how people kind of, not that you were a mindset coach, but that mindset kind of shift happened because you were saying one thing and then you were like, oh shit, I think I need to look at the other way. And then you and I did some work together, and now some of the stuff that you're creating is I mean, I love so much of it. But so tell me, I mean, you had a moment almost like what you're asking your clients to have. So tell me a little bit about how that came up and what you're finding kind of on this side now that you have embraced the AI and it becomes part of your imaging and your pictures and all the colors, and I love them so much. But anyways, tell us about that.
So I mean, I've got a very high moral compass. I like to stand my ground. Again, I think when you've been in a career for so long that so many other people now are trying to jump on the back of and imitate with very little experience. I get quite frustrated by that, and I'm very vocal, and I'm quite provocative, and I'm trying to tone it down a little bit. And the one thing that I was quite provocative about for a very long time, very, on my moral high ground, was AI. I mean, I didn't even use ChatGPT until Christmas was when I started dabbling with it, and I was like, oh my God, like, I have been doing all of this work manually for so long. And the one big thing that I do with my clients, my one-on-one clients, and the clients that I take through my online group program is really, again, it's all of that deep work to understand their zone of genius, their brand's DNA. When I talk about brand DNA, I mean about their values, their personality, all these things that we can plug into ChatGPT now and create our, posts and content from. So I've been doing all that manually for a long time. So Christmas came, and I've got my own like 18-page, what we call our brand powerhouse positioning brand blueprint. Powerhouse positioning is my IP, by the way. That's what my entire business is built around, the concept of powerhouse positioning. And there's a whole system, a 3-stage system. So everything that I'm doing, every offer that I put out there is linked in some way to powerhouse positioning. That's what I want that to become famous, not me. That's I sit behind it, I own it, but that's the thing I want people to look at and think, okay, this is the real deal. If I follow this process, I am going to be able to build a sustainable business and scale. Yeah, that's what it's there for. Um, so I started playing around with ChatGPT at Christmas. I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Started playing around with it. And then this, I don't know, just out of nowhere, about 3 months ago, there was you, and there was our lovely Bonnie, who is incredible, isn't she? I mean, Bonnie is incredible. She is the queen of just dreamy, like magnificent AI. And I sort of, I got friendly with you, and I was like, okay, I can see where AI branding photos fit in, well, from Lyndsey's perspective, in terms of creating something visual and be able to like look at it. I mean, I've got I know I did my your workshop, and I've got my brand visionary board, my AI mood board. It's on my desktop as my background. So every morning I look at it and I can see it, and it's like brilliant. It's so powerful, and I keep adding to it. But with Bonnie, who wasn't really doing something like that, she was just teaching people how to make AI. And I remember she posted something one day, and I shot straight back at her, and I was like, this is ridiculous. This is not authentic. This is so shallow. This is so hollow. And what about all the photographers out there? In true Lindsay style, I was just like, oh, I didn't even really think about what I was saying. And she came back with, in with her vibe, which is, she's so like understanding and diplomatic, and explained it to me, and I was like, okay, this girl's lovely, I really like her, but I'm still not sure. And then I actually started working with a coach in America, Monique Alvarez, her name is, and she's brilliant, and she coaches women to essentially talk to that top 1%. So and that's what I want to do. I want to work with those 6 7 figure coaches that want to really really real or align themselves, or align their brand with themselves. So I was talking to her one day, and she's like, and she's just like me. She's one of these coaches that's just so sort of doesn't, just says it how it is. She's like, Lindsay, you need to stop with this moral bullshit. these women, yeah, at the top of their game, are not interested in the process. They're not interested in the tools. All they're interested in is the result. That's it. They haven't got the fucking time to be flying from California to New York to do a photo shoot. They just want something quick that's gonna free up more of their time, and that's not, you know, it's not about the money. It's not about that. It's time. Bottom line, yeah, and it's about looking at the part and being aligned with their brand, yeah. And I just thought, I'm missing fucking trick here. Seriously, I am really like missing a trick. If I keep going down this moral high ground route, which I've been on my entire career, and I can tell you now, being on a moral high ground your entire career stumps what you're about. My, you know, it stopped me from earning a shitload of money. If I'd have just ran with a lot of the stuff I should have ran with in the last 10 years, I would be a lot further down the, you know, I would be a lot closer to a millionaire than I am now, because I've always allowed my moral, you know, my compass to my values, I suppose, to really get in the way. And I think what I've learned is, you know, it's as much a value thing in business as much a pioneering, get ahead of the game. It's about being able to align your values with essentially what's going to be able to help you drive your business forward and build your business. And I came to realize that as a designer, you know, I have got to embrace this. I've got to get on it, because I can also do with AI what a lot of the people can't do. Again, as a designer, you know, I can really get clever with it. And my vibe's very different to certainly to Bonnie's, in the sense that my vibe with AI is all about showing people how they can bring AI imagery into their brand, you know, colors, style, whatever it might be. So yeah, that's sort of where I am now. And thank you for you know, and to Monique and to the other women that have really just given me a kick up the arse and told me to get over myself, really.
I love that so much. Well, you know what I love about that is you know, I've been teaching visualization and AI, and I love that. And then Bonnie comes along, and I've seen her issues, her images, and I love them. But because I was so focused on the visual, right? Like the TEDx stage, the, you know, trip to Spain, whatever it was, I never really got to like dream the way she was dreaming. And so we, of course, got into conversations, and I love her to death, and her images always motivate me to actually dream. Like, why not flying a unicorn in cotton candy clouds? Why not? Like, and so her images really help with that too. But I find it really interesting, because I think there's a few people within the AI space that, you know, definitely really help, you know, lift each other up. And then, of course, there's the other side of that, which, you know, take the course that she's done and try to, you know, sell it like
Oh
they're an
yeah.
expert. It's kind of like what you were saying, you know, and interestingly enough, you know, going back to what you're saying about morals and, you know, your high ground and stuff like that, there's a place for that. Of course, I believe that 100%. You know, I remember a coach telling me once back when I was just doing fitness, and she was like, you know, people want to lose 30 pounds in 2 days. So that's why you're going to make your money. And I was like, I don't care what people want. I know that's not true. And I refuse to do that. That's the moral high ground that I would stand by. And could I have made more money? Yeah. Would I have been happy? Absolutely not. So there's always this fine line between that. But I think in your case, when you reached out to me, you're just like, okay, I know I need to do this. You know, how do I do it? And how do I do it for me? Right. And that's, I think, the big question that you asked yourself was like, how do you, Lindsay, do it for you? Not me, Lindsay, but you, Lindsay, do it for you. And I think you've mastered that. And I think that's the beauty of what you've done. And, you know, what Bonnie creates is this idea of, you know, don't be afraid to show off who you are. And you've taken that, and obviously what we've taught, you know, worked on together, and really created it into your own. And, you know, I'm working with a client right now who's just saying, like, she's never felt sexier. She's never felt more empowered than when she creates her AI images. And that's what it's fucking about, right?
Oh,
All the other
absolutely.
stuff,
Yeah.
all the other
Yeah.
stuff is amazing. But if you can put something out and it's your brand stamp, and you're like, I feel good when I put this out, that's what it's all about. That's taking what Bonnie does, what I do, and what you do, and kind of meshing it all together into this beautiful, you know, synergy of saying, you know what, if your brand is saying, I feel good, I feel sexy, I feel smart, whatever it is, then that's what I feel like AI imaging is really about, not the other
Yeah.
stuff.
No, I think for me, the problem with AI is when you get some coach that sticks herself in a private plane and then starts telling the world she's earning seven figures when she's probably not. That's the issue for me. I mean, the AI, the way I use AI, which is quite different to you and Bonnie, because I mean, you're obviously about looking at your future self. Bonnie's about imagination and just, you know, just letting everything run wild. Mine's more about trying to get as close to the person that I am now, but in a way that is the best version, like I have been out for my makeup doing, and I've lost a few pounds, and I've, had my Botox, and now I'm going to go for my photo shoot, but actually I don't need to do the photo shoot because I can do this instead. So, I do go a little bit crazy sometimes with it, but really the business I'm getting now is women that are coming to me and saying, I've got one at the moment. She came to me yesterday saying, I've got a book launch. I haven't time to go and, do a photo shoot. Can you do me some photos? I'm building a couple of websites for coaches at the moment, and I've done some AI for them, some AI images, and they've come back and said, right, can you help me with my branding now? The actual, the aesthetics around that. So I think that's where it's going, and that's where it's going to be great. And there'll always be a place for the photographer, because I've got a bit on my high horse. I've got photographer friends, and actually that week when I took that when I paid you to help me and show me how to do it, I actually had an Instagram sort of live conversation booked in with a photographer, and we were going to talk about, and I actually ended up cancelling it because I was like, shit, I can't talk about what I wanted to talk about now because I've just flipped entirely. But like anybody in this space, certainly for me as a somebody with that marketing background, copyright, all of that stuff, AI is going to take over. You've got to find your zone of genius. And if you're just taking photographs as a photographer, you need to look at how you can develop that further into something that is, again, tied back to your zone of genius. And what I want to say as well, just on the IP front, you launched something this week, and I was like, yes. Lindsay, she's got her IP, the truth system.
The truth
That's
method.
exactly what I'm talking about. So rather than being known as Lindsay Hack, the vision board, you become known because you are the founder of truth.
Yes.
And that is so strong.
Yeah, and I love it. And it's funny because it's kind of like what you were saying. This is what I've been doing anyways. This is how I've been taking people through and working with it. And then I was just like trying to figure out how to kind of bring it together. And that's exactly it. It's, doing it in steps. And it's such an amazing thing. And just so on another note, I was just saying, so I actually work with quite a few pphotographers. So this is something that you can take and people can work with. And what they've done is, yes, AI, just like a copywriter, just like a marketer, might feel a little intimidated by it, right? And when I started with the very first photographer I worked with, I said to her, what's your limitation right now in your business? And her limitation is 50-mile radius, or 200-mile radius, or whatever her limitation is, or finding somebody who, like you say, has time to fly to Paris and do a photo shoot. So what we've done is we've now opened up this opportunity that she can create, and like her, has a viewpoint as a designer, as a photographer, that's very different than other people. So they can take their zone of genius, you could take your zone of genius and create images and photos in a virtual and real life scenario. So she's actually bringing this hybrid method together. And it's massive, because now all of a sudden, instead of having just a 50-mile radius of her clientele, she can be worldwide. And so when Absolutely. I say to people, open up the possibilities, what it looks like, it might be a little bit different, but open up the possibilities. And I think that's what happened, when it came from your perspective. And I don't think you're over the top by any stretch, just so we're clear. I love your images. I love all the different colors. You've seen, I created the chair image where my boobs are like popping out. It was awesome. But like, I just think that there's so much opportunity to that. And that's only one part. I'm not saying that's the part of your business altogether, or your zone of genius, your IP, or anything, but it's one part that really does right now hold you apart from everybody else, and will continue to. And so that's what I love about that. Well, so Lindsay and I have already had this discussion that we could probably talk for 75 years and still be recording, and everybody will be like, what are you guys talking about? So I am going to try to wrap us up in this sense, but let's talk about this, Lindsay. So if somebody's listening and they're like, holy shit, I love this vibe, I love this, as I said, go check out her Facebook, because she has some really great stuff. How can they work with you? Where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on Facebook. Don't ask me for my Facebook. No, anyway, you can publish it.
I'll
Don't
put it
ask
somewhere.
me for the URL of the Facebook. You can find me on Instagram as the brand Visioneer. That is my stage name, we'll call it. And there's a number of ways to work with me. I work a lot with one-on-one clients. I have an offer called the Signature Build, which takes women, experienced coaches from right from the positioning all the way through IP, system building, branding and visual identity, right through to website design and build. I have my own I'm a go high level white labeled agency as well. So I have that tech piece to my bow. I have various other offers. I've got Pimp Up My Branding that I launched last week, which again was a bit controversial, but you know what? It's
Love
not
it.
about being a pimp. It's about pimping up. It's based on the MTV program from the 90s and noughties
And you know
that I
what?
love.
Anybody who knows that, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, totally, like Pimp My Ride. Like I'm in. Like it was
Yeah,
so
yeah,
funny.
yeah,
And I think, like you
yeah,
say, that's who you are. And if
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
came out with like, little granny panty kind of like, people would be like, what the
Well,
fuck is going
I
on with
nearly did.
Lindsay?
You know, the 2% of the people that were like, I would not work with you because of that. You know, it's offensive. They did, for a minute there. I didn't think, oh shit, should I pull it in? And then I thought, no, sod it. No, I'm not doing that. No. As long as it's explained properly, it's not about prostitution or sex workers or, anything, taking advantage of people or anything like that. This is about pimping up your brand. And so that was out last week. I'm now working on another offer, which is a much lower level entry level offer, sorry, around developing IPs in coaching businesses for them. So that's my next thing. So that's going to be coming out in the next week or so. So that is that's probably going to be
Amazing.
the best, most cost effective way to really get to experience how I work, really.
Right. Right. Well, and I love that. Right. I mean, you have lots of options in terms of how to work with you, different price points, different, commitment levels in terms of both financial and time. And I think that's important, right? I think that's important that people can try you out in different ways, but also if they want to go all in and it's one-on-one, let's go. So I will be putting all of that information in the show notes somewhere and you can take a look, but I highly, if nothing else, I highly recommend connecting with Lindsay on Facebook specifically, but Instagram's fun too. But I feel like Facebook's a little bit more spicy, and I love it. It makes me
Well,
giggle
also,
almost
I'm
every
just
day.
about, so just to interrupt as well, if you can just give me a shout out, my new newsletter that's about to come out, which is called BS Weekly, and BS stands for brand strategy,
Not bullshit, but
bullshit,
we think it's
and
the same.
and British sarcasm. So it's a mix of those three things. So
I
if you want
love
to,
it.
if you love my vibe on Facebook, which is a bit cheeky sometimes, then I'm gonna really ramp it up.
Yes, I love it. All right, well, we'll get the link for that too, and I'll get it in the show notes because you can get Lindsay all in multiple ways: Facebook, Instagram, newsletter. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Well, thank you so very much for joining me
Thank you,
today, and I
Lindsay.
very much appreciate it. And guys, until next week, we will do another show and potentially have another guest. So have yourself a fantastic one. We'll speak soon.
You too.
Bye.
Thanks, Lindsay. Bye.
Bye.